Cageside with John Morgan.
Episode 51, Cageside with John Morgan. I'm your host, Eric McMahon. Edson Barboza seems to be timeless at this point. He battles through adversary, comes away with a unanimous decision victory at the Apex Center. Big shakeup concerning UFC 294. If you caught our episode last week, take that analysis, throw it in the trash. It's absolutely worthless at this point. We will not be breaking down Makhachev versus Oliveira. We will not be breaking down Khamzat versus Paulo Costa. There's new opponents. Don't know if it's better or not. Still highly interesting. We'll get into that. And how could we let this show go by without talking about everybody's favorite personality, Dillon Danis, as he incites a brawl at the end of the sideshow that was Dillon Danis versus Logan Paul. Also, we're fresh off the heels of CFFC in Tampa, Florida. We will recap that a little bit because though they are putting on a great product. The man who was on the call for that event, he was also in the Apex the next night. Team No Sleep. Follow him on Twitter, John Morgan _MMA. John Morgan, what's up, brother?
Man, what an absolutely crazy week it was, both in the cage, out of the cage, all the news that was breaking, the cards that were getting shuffling, USADA getting thrown to the side for the UFC. I mean, so much. And man, I feel like I just saw you. It's been a crazy weekend. We got to work together down in Florida.
You did
know, right?
Yeah.
I love it. Hey, but I wouldn't have it any other way, man. Just a crazy, crazy week. That's why we love the sport. It was good times.
All righty. So I'm going to put this in the John Morgan decision-making camp right now. Where do you want to start? Do you want to start Edson Barboza? Do you want to start 294? Or do you want to start Dillon Danis? Or do you want to start USADA? It was listen, these are all over the spectrum of how we're going to attack these conversations. So I didn't know where to rank these things.
I mean, look, looking forward is UFC 294. That's phenomenal. Look, hey, for the next few years, we're going to talk about this USADA news. So that's something that's certainly going to be out there. But I mean, if I'm just judging by the number of people discussing things on social media and being out there, I mean, you got to start Dillon Danis, don't you? I mean, as crazy as that is, it's not even MMA. It's not even high-level competition. But, man, the trolling that led up to it, the trolling that happened in it, I mean, it was just – it captured everybody's attention for better or worse. Yeah.
We talked about this what was it? Thursday and I think Friday night we were sitting down, the CFFC crew in Tampa. We were talking about it, just how this trolling got so bad. And I said, and everybody was kind of making fun of it. And I said, I'm here for it. I'm intrigued. It hooked me. Now, listen, I knew this fight was going to be what it was. And let's not mistake it. The Paul brothers are fabulous at getting a one-sided way in promotion, right? And a one-sided way in a fight. I truly believe that Jake Paul, the brother of Logan Paul that fought this weekend, but Jake Paul, I think the guy has some serious talent. Mm-hmm. I think he's got serious power, and he is by far the better boxer of the two.
True.
Now, Logan Paul, who fought Dillon Danis this week, I think overall, up until maybe the lead up into this, he was the more charismatic, more likable of the two. In a weird way, I think that changed.
You think Dillon Danis stole a little bit of that shine just in the build up to this or during the fight itself?
No, in the build up to it, because listen, have you ever seen a lawsuit thrown out in the middle of a build up to a fight?
No, that was a weird situation. Yeah, you're right about it. It was kind of wild because Dillon Danis, for anybody that doesn't know, probably kind of best known as the training partner of Conor McGregor. That's probably how most of the world knows him casually, but a very, very accomplished grappler, right? I mean, a history in the sport, like legitimate Brazilian jiu-jitsu skills. He has real talent. But I think he saw kind of Conor McGregor's rise to popularity and kind of embraced that a little bit of himself and started trying to, market a little bit. He signed with Bellator and we used to have these jokes with Scott Coker because, he said, Scott, my business partner. So we used to ask Scott about Dillon Danis. He's like, oh, my business partner, Dillon Danis. Yeah. So anyway, but he had always kind of been this public enemy number one because he wasn't competing. Basically, he was talking a lot of trash. He was always saying that he would do things, but he was never competing. And people were like, when are you going to actually show up? And then this one, he did actually show up. I mean, you can rate that at another time, but I will say I do feel like public sentiment started kind of swinging his way in the build up to this.
Now let's not bury Dillon too hard. I know wasn't your intent on his lack of fighting. It has been widely documented that he had some major knee issues, blew out his knee, then the cadaver tendon didn't take, had to have another knee surgery, then went into a fight with another blown knee injury. So he has been dealing with that. And if we take even a step before Conor McGregor, before he came to fame as training partners with Conor McGregor and the whole Khabib nonsense. Prior to that, guy was on the world stage jiu-jitsu competitor. He first came to fame as being one of the dream team members of the Marcelo Garcia brown belt crew. Yep. And then he excelled there, world championship at black belt under Marcelo Garcia. Then the Dillon, hype train or the Dillon persona came to pass. Marcelo actually threw him out of his gym.
Yep.
Right. And then let's just lead it up to this. He went all in on troll. And listen, I truly believe that in some degree, now I don't want to get families involved, right? Because that's just not a good way to handle things. But the Pauls kind of had this coming to a degree at some point. They originally started trolling Dillon Danis years ago, right? And this was Dillon's get back. And Dillon took this for what it was. I'm going to make my name and I'm going to get a payday. This ain't my sport. Just don't get knocked out.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny, man. I always say the lead up, Dana White is famous for saying, hey, we don't tell anybody what to say in the build up to a fight. It's a nasty business. People are going to say nasty things, and that's true. But I've always stood firm in the face of I think you leave race, religion, and family out of it. Those are things I don't think should be brought into it. The family members didn't sign up to be in a fight. And of course, Dillon was posting multiple pictures of Logan's fiance with multiple, a lot of them with
multiple a day.
Yeah, and you look at it was all like her with previous boyfriends and stuff, but I think she's a model as well. So some of those may have just been pictures from modeling shoots that that aren't even actual relationships. But whatever, you throw them out there with no context, you're definitely trolling. Now the lawsuit came about because there's an allegation that some of those things were actually hacked and they were private images that weren't ever supposed to be posted. Now if that's the case, then look, there's some legal issues there. Now Dillon has said, man, I don't even know how to hack an iPhone. What are you talking about, man? These are just things that were out there that I Googled, that I found. We'll see how that all plays out in court. But to your point, lawsuits are a little bit weird in the build up to it. And I thought the whole build up was a little bit weird, but you kind of said it. We are talking about the Paul brothers as well, who have been professional trolls and professional promoters their whole life, right? They've been great at doing these things to get attention.
I mean, didn't Logan Paul knock out a homeless man at one point or something like that?
So you kind of understand why Dillon was like, hey, man, I know that there's no real level to where they're going to stop, so I'm not going to stop either. You know what I mean? I'm going to go ahead and do this. So you can debate whether or not you thought it was inappropriate or not. And again, if there were indeed, some iPhones that were hacked, there's going to be some legal ramifications to that, and we'll see how that plays out. But I'll tell you what it did, man. It got a lot of attention. It got a lot of eyeballs on this, man. You see the social media following that Dillon Danis gained. I mean, I think he went, I forget the exact numbers. It was somewhere from a couple 100,000 to well over 1 million followers on certain platforms. I mean, the man got attention.
I saw this actually this morning, that in the build up to this fight, Dillon Danis, or let's say Logan Paul, let's start there. He gained 276,000 new Instagram followers.
Big.
That's big.
Big.
You want to take a guess at how many Dillon got new Instagram followers?
Oh, I mean, I know. 3-4 times that.
1.5 million new followers in the buildup.
Wow.
Now, I say all that to say this is I do think public sentiment was And a lot of fighters are saying, you don't like, listen, it's all fair. Like whether you like it or not, appropriate or not, it's all fair game in the buildup, right? And I tend to agree, right? You know, Khabib didn't throw out any lawsuits when when Conor and Dylan were talking about his dad and his family, and they were throwing dollies through buses. And I mean, I think there's a way to handle stuff and there's a way not to. Let's just get to the fight, right? Because Dylan he's not known as a stand-up guy. It's not even like we've ever seen an MMA fight, all 4 of his, and said, man, he does have a little bit of slick boxing. Said nobody ever.
Yeah, that's the thing that's the part that I was having a really hard time getting into the matchup itself, right? I mean, all the trolling and all the attention, all that, but it's like at the end of the day, Logan and Jake Paul have both done a great job of hand selecting their matchups, right? And so this never seemed like it was going to be a competitive boxing match to me. Now, look, if they were booking an MMA fight where I know that Dylan can grapple a little bit, I mean, then maybe I start looking at it a little bit more seriously and think maybe something, good could happen out of it. Maybe it is a competitive match. I mean, they're not even the same size. They're not even the same skill in the stand-up. So that was the part that I had a hard time really sinking my teeth into and saying that I'm fired up for this matchup.
Okay, I want to get into the ending of this fight, or this one-sided, I'm going to pitter-patter you while you cover up, right? Nobody hurt each other, contrary to whatever either one of them said. Nobody was hurt in this fight, ever. There wasn't a lot going on. But there was a disqualification, and I'm still confused at what the disqualification was for. Now, let's go back early, maybe in like the 6th round or something like that. Dylan tried a half-hearted attempt at a takedown. That was stuffed by Logan Paul, which is funny, right? And so the ref warned him, docked him a point. Then in the last round, he grabbed a kind of guillotine and sat back on it, slipped off. Logan Paul then throws a punch at him on the ground. Then Logan's security comes into the ring. And this is just where I'm confused. Now, I'm not saying Dylan isn't deserving of losing this fight, but they disqualified Dylan Danis for this. I'm confused by it. Logan's security team jumped in.
It is wild, right? Because I thought the same thing, and it's funny because you're a licensed official, not in boxing, of course, but in mixed martial arts. But if a mixed martial arts corner scaled the cage and jumped in, I'm disqualifying that guy, not the other guy. But I guess what you're saying is, or not you particularly, but the official here is saying that, well, the reason that happened was because of the grappling exchanges that were initiated by Dylan Danis, when in reality, this is a boxing match. There's not supposed to be any grappling exchanges. But I'm with you. I'm a little bit confused by the decision. Now, I'm not sitting here by any stretch and saying, man, you robbed my guy, Dylan Danis. He deserved to win this fight because, again, you're initiating grappling exchanges in a boxing match. But it is a weird decision, right? If that's Logan Paul's security team that jumps in there, why is Dylan Danis being the one that's disqualified? So it's a little bit of a head scratcher, but and I think the only people that might have a reason to actually care is the people that maybe had a little wagering ticket on that, right? Like at the end of the day, does it really matter who wins this fight? I mean, we know who won the fight.
I'm glad you brought that up.
But what if I had a Dylan Danis underdog ticket in my hand? Wouldn't I be a little bit upset right now and saying,
what if you had see, I don't know how this goes. What if you had Logan Paul by unanimous decision? What if you had Logan Paul by whatever? When there's a disqualification, and I don't know the overture rules because this doesn't happen very often, but how does the betting breakdown win by disqualification? Because a lot of times it's win by split decision, UD, knockout. There's ways you win. Very rarely is it just win.
Right. Yeah, you can do a money line where you pick just who's going to win, but those are going to be a lot more, tighter lines than if you're actually picking the way. When you start adding in, I think it's going to be my knockout. Now I think it's going to be by 3rd round knockout. Now that when you start doing those things, the lines get wider and wider because you're really predicting it. So yeah, if you're sitting on a Logan Paul by decision ticket and you're 5 seconds away from cashing that, and this chaos ensues, that's got to frustrate you a little bit. And then again, if you're sitting on a Dylan Danis victory ticket, now you might have already torn it up by the time this all happens because you're like, well, that's not going to happen. I think at the
end of round 2, you threw it away.
Yeah, you already ripped it up. But now you're saying, hold on. It wasn't my guy's team that rushed in there and caused this disqualification. So what are we doing here? So look, I can't imagine the line, the limits on these things were really, really high because it was
Drake lost $850,000.
Oh, wow.
He bet Logan Paul. I don't know if it was by UD or by knockout, but he bet Logan Paul. He lost on that bet.
Oh, Drake, first of all, what are you doing putting that kind of money on a fight like this? What are you doing, Drake? Like, I know you got that kind of money to throw around, but that's crazy. Yeah, and that was the whole thing about this. And I've seen a lot of the fallout since where people are like, oh, this was a terrible fight. Like, they didn't deliver. Like, man, what did you think you were signing up for? It was never going to be a good fight. Now, did it end up being a little bit more chaotic and a little worse than people thought? Maybe, but that just goes to show, are you signing up for the freak show or are you signing up for high-level competition? Because if you thought you were going to see high-level competition, then I don't know if you got the wool pulled over your eyes.
Oceanfront property in Arizona to sell you.
I was going to say, I don't know if you got the wool pulled over your eyes or you just need to do a little bit more research before you buy into something, because it was never going to be a high-level contest.
You know what? I didn't mean to bring this up, but I own a bunch of fitness gyms in the Memphis market, right? And it's fitness kickboxing. And one of my gyms, I'm transitioning fitness boxing. I'm adding a boxing program in there with a real boxing coach and kind of reshaping the gym a little bit to bring in a younger demographic that are wanting to box. In the city of Collierville, Tennessee is where I own one of these gyms. The number one Google analytic for workout terms for people looking to do workout is boxing, which is making a big resurgence. And I give Logan and Jake Paul 100% credit to that. I can't prove it in any which way or so. I was shocked when I saw this analytic and I was like, pivot. Boop.
That's interesting. Well, first of all, look at you and your business sense doing the right thing to understand what the market is looking for. Smart man. But you're right. You can criticize this, influencer boxing trend all you want, and it's understandable. So again, you got to realize what you sign up for. If you're thinking that these guys could compete, and that's what is kind of, I think, a little bit frustrating sometimes, is you hear like Jake Paul saying, he wants to fight Canelo, and you heard KSI talking about, man, I think I can compete with anybody in the world. And it's like, no, you can't. You absolutely can't. It's not the same thing. But in terms of just bringing attention to the sport and bringing attention to combat sports in general, man, you got to give the people credit. They have millions and millions and millions of followers that are tuning in to watch them. And look, especially, and you touched on as well, Jake Paul, man, I think you don't even necessarily call him an influencer boxer anymore. I think he really is committed to the craft of boxing. I mean, he is full-time training, really trying to make a run at this, and I think he deserves some credit for it. But I do think you're right. These people are drawing eyeballs. Whether you like it, you look down on it, or whatever, you have to at least admit, man, they are drawing some eyeballs to the sport.
Yeah. I watched all the press conferences leading up. I watched everything. I was kind of like, maybe my MMA bias and my jiu-jitsu bias. I knew Dillon didn't have a chance. I knew it.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
But I was actually somewhat secretly hoping that he pulled some of the shenanigans that he did. Now, I wish he would have latched onto the guillotine just to say, like, my way is going to beat your way 99 times out of 100 or something. And that's what I watched it for. And truth be told, I got exactly what I wanted.
That's it. I mean, it was a little bit more chaotic. If you think about it, it's just like when we watch Nate Diaz with Jake Paul, right? Like, I think we all knew deep down, or at least I personally did, like, this is an uphill battle for Nate Diaz. Like, I don't see him winning this fight. He hasn't been training as competitively. He hasn't. He's a small. I mean, all the odds were stacked against him. There's a reason Jake Paul picked Nate Diaz, but he was our guy, right? We were pulling for our guy, and I loved it when he latched in the guillotine late in the fight. I mean, that was amazing.
I know that you know that I know.
Of course, you know what I'm saying? That it's like, hey, if this was a real fight, we know what would have happened. So look, this was chaos. It was always going to be chaos. I've seen some people complaining about it after the fact. I get it, but it's like, you had to know what you were signing up for, man. It was always going to be a little bit of a circus. You know what I mean? And did Dillon make it more of a circus than it needed to be? Yeah, but you know what? I think even
his security didn't jump in. His security didn't jump in. And here's the crazy thing. In reality, in any normal boxing match, combat sport, whatever, Logan Paul would have been disqualified 2 rounds earlier. And I'll tell you why. when he tried that initial takedown, takedowns happen all the time. Guys get hurt. Somebody will try and take him to the ground. Do whatever they can. They never get suspended. They usually don't get a point taken from them. They don't happen. Dillon Danis did that. And security jumped in the cage at that point. Logan's security team. That's an automatic disqualification right then and there. And it didn't happen.
That's right. That's right.
And then it happened again. Then Dillon does what he does. I'm going to push the envelope a little bit further. And then more security jumped in. Right? So, listen, I'm not saying that Dillon should have won because he sure as heck should not have won that fight. Right? And he didn't win that fight. It was just, if anybody was saying Dillon Danis made a mockery of this, get the hell out of here. This thing was a mockery from day one by both guys.
I mean, look, it's true. I mean, again, it was a mockery the moment it was signed. We all knew that. We all knew what we were signing up for, or at least you should have. If you didn't, then you have now learned your lesson, and you now have educated yourself moving forward to understand the difference between influencer-type sideshows and actual high-level competition.
And I do believe that Jake Paul, older brother, Jake Paul, is a serious competitor in this game. I don't want to conflate him with what happened this weekend.
No, Jake deserves credit, man. He is really trying to make a run of it as a boxer, man. He's training at a high level. He's committed his life to it. And yes, he started out as a YouTuber, and that sort of thing, but he's progressed. And people look at him and say, oh, he hasn't fought anybody yet, but that's the boxing model. I mean, at least he's fought names that you recognize and you've been interested in. Look at any other boxer out there.
Millions upon millions of dollars onto it.
100%. You got to give them all the credit in the world for that. Other boxers in other places, they're not fighting anybody either. It's just that they're fighting guys that you don't care about and you have no desire to tune in. You don't fight real competition in boxing until you're, 15-0, 18-0, 20-0, 25-0. I mean, that's how records are built and that's how careers are built. And Jake's just found a way to do it against people you actually want to tune in to watch.
And before we move on, Dillon Danis said that he made more money in this fight than anybody in the UFC per fight, not named Connor or Izzy. And possibly he said Islam because he didn't really know how much he was making, but I'm sure he's ranking in tons of pay-per-view points from, Eastern Europe, right? Take that for what it's worth. Who if you're going to say Dillon lost this, Dillon won.
Yeah.
Dillon won. Logan Paul won. I think I still won because I enjoyed it. But if you wanted serious competition, you lost. That's lost.
That's it. If you knew what you were signing up for, you could at least have a good time with it. That's for sure. Hey, look, I'm going to be honest with you. I was at the UFC during that. I was at the Apex. I was watching the event. But I'm telling you right now, everybody in there was keeping up to date on what was happening with that matchup. Even everybody in there was talking to each other and be like, bro, did you just see the clip? Did you see what happened in round 2? Did you hear? Oh my gosh, can you believe he just pulled guard down there? I mean, everybody was talking about Dillon did his job, man. It was Joaquin Buckley just a couple weeks ago who was talking about the fact that, fighters sometimes complain that they feel like they're not getting the right push in their careers. And he's like, what are you doing to go out there and push your career? What are you doing to draw eyeballs? We're supposed to be getting everybody to want to tune in. Dillon did that. Was he able to compete? Did we think he could win the fight? No. But what did he do? He got people interested. He did his job.
Can he go to the UFC now? He indicated he wants to go to the UFC. I listen, he's got the talent. He is a world-class jiu-jitsu guy. If Ryan Hall can win fights in the UFC, Dillon Danis can. Absolutely. He like literally gets underneath people, world-class, attacks legs, attacks everything. But the sideshow that he is, do you think they would ever give him a chance? Or do you think they would give him a chance because of the sideshow he is? It's a two-pronged question.
All right, so here's the question that we'd have to get the answer to first. Because I tend to say no. I tend to say the UFC would say no. I mean, they've done the sideshow route from time to time here and there, but I kind of feel like they wouldn't, because he's had so much trouble actually competing. You know what I mean? He hasn't shown up and he's been difficult. So I say no. But here's what just occurred to me as you said that. What's his contract status right now? Do we know that? Is he still under contract with Bellator? Because
no. According to him, he's free and clear.
He's free and clear. Okay. Well, I was going to say,
and he's got Connor.
Oh, and he's got Connor. But I'm telling you what, hey, you know who would give him a chance and should give him a chance? The PFL. They've already got Jake Paul. Under contract. Do you do? I mean, maybe that's the matchup. I mean,
But
at least put
Logan
them on the same
Paul
card.
or Dillon Danis. I'm sorry, I'm naming everybody involved. Dillon Danis said post-fight, right, that he wants to go to the UFC.
Yeah, but when the offer doesn't come and he gets the offer from the PFL, that might change real quick.
Oh, you're just saying it's probably not. It's not in the cards at least now. He needs to be taken seriously in MMA, in combat sports, and another organization.
Listen, I would think so. Now, again, at the end of the day, this is a business, and then the numbers he put up, the interest he put up, maybe Dana White and Hunter Campbell and the matchmakers are saying, hey, can we find somebody for this guy to fight? Because look, he would be much more well suited for a mixed martial arts fight than he would for a boxing match. So, as you said, Ryan Hall, about as pure of a grappler as you can get. I mean, the stand-up is just a means for him to get an entry, and half the time he's not even throwing punches. He's just Eminari rolling into your leg. So Dillon Danis would be much more competitive. Had this been an MMA fight, I probably would have been much more intrigued by it because I would have found it much more competitive.
Had this been an MMA fight, it would have been over with under 2 minutes.
100%. And so can he compete? Like, don't take this and say that he's not a serious martial artist. He is. You laid out the credentials. You laid out the accolades. His grappling game is on another level. An MMA fight, he could absolutely be competitive. I just don't see the UFC biting right now. But who knows? I mean, who knows? Look, they've my good friend and co-commentator CM Punk, right? I mean, why was he brought in? Because he was the highest level mixed martial artist? No, and he'll tell you that. I was brought in because I was an incredibly popular professional wrestler that people would tune in to see how could I compete in the UFC. So would they want to go that route again? They might. They absolutely could. But I just don't necessarily see them doing it right now. Dana has kind of made it a point to say, hey, man, we don't really do that kind of thing, and people are quick to say, well, you've done it before. And he's like, yeah, but we don't really do those kind of matchups. But I'm telling you right now, the PFL, man, I think that's the perfect landing spot, right? Because they have these season-long tournaments and they had this sports season format where you have, the guys vying for $1 million and they're going through seedings and playoffs and all that. But then you also have these super fights, these one-off super fights, and they've already signed Jake Paul. So they've already shown that they're willing to step into that business. Maybe they'd be willing to sign Dillon Danis too. Maybe they'd be willing to sign to fight each other.
Or maybe Connor, the good buddy, adds a little pressure to the UFC. Okay, hypothetically, next year, Conor McGregor and Dillon Danis on the same UFC pay-per-view. That ain't doing numbers. I mean, do numbers regardless, but
yeah, unbelievable. It would be wild. Look, I would not be. I'll be honest with you. I would not. I
think Dillon Danis can compete top 10 in the UFC welterweight division. He is that good of a grappler. He is that good of a grappler. I mean, I've watched him compete live. He took Gordon Ryan to a 1-0 loss. Gordon Ryan, like 5 years ago. Dillon Danis is that good at jiu-jitsu. He is that good. We talk about how good Ryan Hall is. Dillon Danis is on another level than that.
Oh, but top 10, man, that's huge. I mean, let's take the
top 10. Compete.
Okay, let me just make sure you realize what you're saying. Okay, I mean, let's take the champion out of the equation. Let's just go 1 through. Okay. Boy, I was about to start naming off some names: Usman, Covington, Muhammad, Chimaev, Burns, Rachmanov, Thompson, Neal, Brady, Lukey. That's 10. And then you get down a little bit. I mean, look, it'd be a struggle in the stand-up department, that's for sure. But against the grapplers, I mean, he can hang with anybody in the grappling department.
Well, that's what I'm saying. He just needs to get it there, or he finds some way. I mean, Ryan Hall was Imanari rolling in. Dillon Danis wasn't getting hit in Bellator. He wasn't fighting the highest level competition either. But we'll go on. You're right. You're right. I'm just saying, like, listen, he gets to his spot, or even even a 70-30 spot for the other guy on the ground. Dillon Danis is that good. He's not a clown there. He is that good.
He's that good. If they could put, I mean, I think his asking price is far too much right now, but like a grappling match or something like that on Fight Pass would be, I mean, I think that might remind people how good he actually is. Because I think right now there's probably a lot of people that don't take him as a legitimate martial artist, and he is. He's not a boxer, and that's why this matchup was always going to be what it ended up being, but he is a martial artist.
All right. Just really quick. We went a little long with my Dillon Danis talk. Let's just really touch on Edson Barboza really quick. You were there. Talk about it.
Unbelievable, man. I mean, Edson Barboza, Sadiq Yusuff, this was a fantastic matchup, a meaningful matchup at featherweight. I think we were really, really excited about it. Sadiq had like a year away, but he looks like he's one of those guys that's going to be a factor in the division for several years to come. Meanwhile, Edson, a legend, right? But he's getting up there a little bit, 37, 38 years old. So you start wondering how long can he keep competing at a high level? And this was an exciting matchup, right? Edson Barboza had his wife in the corner, which I believe the first time she'd actually been in his corner for a fight. And
cool.
Yeah, and he gets absolutely rocked in the opening round. I mean, he is getting beat pillar to post in there, and you're like, oh man. And his wife Bruna was sitting right in front of us. And you could see just the tension. She's upset, and I mean, Edson's just getting beat, and you're like, man, it's finally coming to an end. Because Edson Barboza, I mean, you look at the list of who he's competed
He
against.
was the most terrifying striker in the UFC at one point.
Absolutely. Like, we used to interview guys and just be like, hey, what's it like knowing that you're going to be hurt? Even if you find a way to win this fight, you know that you're going to leave the cage like hurting really bad, not able to walk for a week because this man's leg kicks are so nasty. The spinning wheel kick knockout of Terry Edom is one of the greatest highlights.
Body kicks that he does.
He's incredible. And Sadiq Yusuff is taking it to him, man. I mean, Sadiq had the ultimate game plan, right? Which was, I'm just going to be as aggressive as possible. I'm going to move past kickboxing range into boxing range, and I'm just going to press. And that's the way you fight. But at some point, it seemed like in the opening round, Sadiq had Edson Barboza hurt and wasn't able to finish the fight in the opening round. And you wondered, is he just pacing himself a little bit? Because maybe it's going to be 5 rounds. What's going on here? Turns out it sounds like maybe he suffered a shoulder injury in that opening round. But as round 2 starts, Sadiq's not able to pressure him quite as much. Now, he's still winning the fight. And you're thinking, well, it's not going to matter anyway. Like, Edson's too far gone at this point. But suddenly, Edson starts crawling back into the fight, right? Showing his grit, showing his resolve. In the 3rd round, he lands that signature spinning wheel kick. You think now Sadiq's out. He can't finish Sadiq. Sadiq battles back. He finds a way to survive, and we go into, the 4th and 5th rounds with everything on the line, and Edson just continues to push and outpoints him just a little bit. And I was worried, because that first round looked like a 10-8. 3rd round maybe could have been 10-8, but nobody scored it that way. It was really just that one moment versus real domination in the round. It was more just that flash knockdown. But you wonder, because if one round went the other way, now we're talking about a draw. So I'm like, man, are we going to get a draw after this? But no, Edson won those final 4 rounds. He walks away with the decision win. Didn't even get to talk to the media afterwards because they took him straight to the hospital to get checked out because his eye was busted up. And obviously he'd been through some damage. But Edson Barboza, man, just another incredible performance. And a guy that I think, honestly, like, belongs in the UFC Hall of Fame at some point. I mean, I know he hasn't captured the title, and those championship matchups really, that's what really does it. But I mean, he's nearing 30 fights in the UFC. He's provided some of the greatest highlights we've ever had. He's literally fought everybody. I mean, everybody in 2 weight classes. The dude is a legend, man. And man, this was vintage. And let me say, by the way, I don't think we're done seeing highlights for Sadiq Yusuff. I think there's some bright days ahead of him, but this was just a vintage, phenomenal, gutsy performance from Edson Barboza.
And like, regardless of where you fall and who you're rooting to win, it was a feel good performance too.
Yeah, it really was. It really
Especially
was
for old dogs like us. You know what I mean? It's feel good.
That's it. Look, man, the guys that we've been watching for a decade plus, man, their fighting days are starting to wind down, right? They're starting to walk away, and this was, and unfortunately, that's just the game, right? I mean, the game is, the young lion comes in and takes out the old lion. That's the way it's always been. That's the way it always will be, right? And you thought here was that moment, and here was the moment where the old lion, battled back and said, "Not just yet, young buck, not just yet. Your day will come, but it's not here just yet."
Well, moving on. Fight week UFC 294 Abu Dhabi. We are ready to go. Late last week, after we recorded our podcast, Islam Makhachev gets a new opponent. Charles Oliveira suffers a really nasty cut in training, knocks him out, and we didn't even know he was out by the time they had a replacement. Alexander Volkanovski jumps in. Makhachev-Volkanovski 2 in Abu Dhabi this week. Better main event, not better main event. Are you more excited? Are you disappointed? Or are you just like, it's UFC Fight Week, the highest competitors in the world? Either way, I'm stoked for this card.
Yeah, it's such a hard thing to say, right? Because I am maybe perhaps a little bit more excited by this simply because Islam and Alex has such an incredible fight the first time around, right? I mean, one of the highest level fights that you'll ever see, a fight that I did think Islam barely hung on to and won, but that a lot of people think he didn't. And so to see that run back, I'm excited about. Now, to see it run back on short notice, maybe a little upsetting because you know that Volkanovski is not in the middle of a full camp. I'll say that though with the caveat of that Volkanovski is always training. He's always thinking about the sport. He's wanted this rematch so tremendously bad. He's been game planning. He's been thinking about it. He made it clear this was the fight he wanted. He's even said, meaning more than being a double champ is just beating Islam. I want to show the world that I can beat that guy. So I don't think he's going to come in underprepared or ill-prepared. I'm excited about it. I hesitate to say because I don't want to put down Charles Oliveira, right? He's one of the most exciting guys we've ever seen. It's just the way
and he earned his way back to that title shot.
And he earned his way back. So I want to see that fight again. I'd hate to insult Charles Oliveira by saying I'm more excited by this matchup, but let's just be honest. The first time these guys competed, it was incredible. It was much more competitive than when Islam and Charles fought the first time around. This was a fight that it felt like there was still a little bit of unsettled business to be had, and I'm excited to see it again. So I'm looking forward to it. Worth noting, by the way, just for anybody as we talk about this, it is a special start time because it's in Abu Dhabi. Mark your calendars now. It's actually the main card starts at 2 p.m. Eastern instead of the normal 10 p.m. Eastern. So if you're wanting to watch it, which I actually love these, right? Because you can watch it in the afternoon and then still have a Saturday night to go hang out with the family. But I just always like to point out because sometimes maybe if you're not the hardest of hardcore, maybe you're ready for Saturday night to roll around. You're like, hey, let me check out this fight I've been hearing about. Look, Eric and John, we're talking about this awesome matchup I need to see. And then you find out, oh, my bad, it happened 8 hours earlier. So, yeah, I'm fired up for this one, man.
Here's what I'm interested to see. Okay, I want to go over the lines really quick. New lines have come out. Islam Makhachev is a minus 295 favorite. That's a big, for how close that fight was, he's a minus 295 favorite. And Volkanovski is a plus 200 dog. Now, in layman's terms, if you're going to if you want to throw down $100 on Islam Makhachev, you have to lay down $295 to win $100. He's that big of a favorite. Now, with that being said, I think the short camp has something to do with that. But more importantly, I truly believe that what I said after Volkanovski Makhachev won, Vegas agrees with me. And if you take the crowd out of that fight, I truly believe the margin of victory got a little bit bigger. The crowd influences the way you watch a fight. Islam Makhachev, aside from that fifth round where he kind of tripped and got knocked down at the same time, aside from that, Makhachev was landing the way bigger strikes on the feet. And every shot he hit him with, he was just blasting them backwards. Now, maybe not hurt him, but it was definitely the impacts were bigger with Makhachev. He was the one who got the takedowns. Now, I think the path to victory, if I'm putting my analyst hat on, is Makhachev. He doesn't need to drain that gas tank trying to take him down. Alexander Volkanovski is so fast, so athletic, and so tough. That is a gargantuan task, even for somebody as good as Islam Makhachev. So everybody says, this fight hits the ground, Makhachev's going to kill him. If you can get him there. But when he did get him there in fight number 1, he could not hold him there. So I think the path to victory and that minus 295 favorite is because of the stand-up that Makhachev doesn't get credit for how good he is and the power that he has behind it. Do you agree with me or am I crazy?
No, I think you're 100% spot on, and I think you're right about that. I mean, there's a massive size discrepancy between the two. There's no question about it, and I think Islam packs that power in there. And you're right, trying to take down Alexander Volkanovski is one thing. Trying to hold him there is a completely another thing entirely. That man is just, he's so compact. He's a little bowling ball of energy, right, man? Like, he finds a way to squirm and get up. Obviously, he's got a phenomenal grappling coach, a phenomenal team that he works with, and he'll get back to the feet. But, you know, he's got to push in and out. I think he's best served on the feet as well. But it's so hard when you got to deal with that power that Islam has. So it's an uphill battle for him, to say the least. And I think you're right. You talk about, you know, he had the crowd on his side the first time around. He's not going to have the crowd this time around, right? This time it's taking place in Abu Dhabi. Obviously, Islam Makhachev has a huge support contingent over there, so you're not going to have that in there as well. You mentioned, again, you can't go without saying it, the short notice, I think, definitely factors into the expectations that people have for this. Now, again, cautioning, and remember, that's not like Alexander Volkanovski is a dude that, like, hasn't been training, has just been sitting on the couch and eating Cheetos or whatever, right? Like, I mean, this guy stays in a high level of athleticism, but it's an uphill battle for Volkanovski. But, man, it just goes to show you how incredible of a competitor he is, that, you know, he's willing to take this challenge and say, you know what, let's go do it. I said I wanted the rematch. Let's do it. And Islam deserves that credit too, right?
I'm glad you brought that up, because that was going to be my point in all this, right?
He deserves that credit too. A lot of times we praise the guy that steps in on short notice, and we don't praise the guy on the other side of the cage who also accepted another opponent. So you got to give credit to both these athletes.
Islam made a quote that I think Dana White said he might even put up in the Apex, right? And I don't have it in front of me. I'm going to paraphrase it, though. If you claim to be the best in the world, then you don't say no. Yep. It's not like Makhachev, from my inside knowledge, it was not like Makhachev was one said, okay, give me Volkanovski. It was the UFC that said, hey, you want Volkanovski? If you want me to have Volkanovski, I'll take Volkanovski. That is as gangster as Volkanovski going up. They're equally the same to me. If you got to give the praise there, Makhachev, it's not like he's, you know, got the advantage there. He just doesn't. He knew just as early as Volkanovski, and it's as daunting of a challenge to him.
It really is. I mean, think about it. This is the guy that pushed you to the limit. This is the guy that some people say may have even beat you. You know, it was your toughest test. There's no question about it. And you're willing to accept it on short notice. I love it. And you're right, man. Dana White came out and said that, you know, to get this fight done took 2 phone calls. And that just shows you what a bunch of badasses these two guys are. That you called one, they said, I'm in. You called the other, I'm in. I mean, that's incredible. You love to hear that. That's what we love as fans, right? It's just that people are willing to step up and say, anybody, anytime, anywhere, let's go. I'm in. Love it, man. These two guys deserve all the credit in the world for taking this matchup, and I'm looking forward to it this Saturday.
And is the rumor true about somebody being in his corner?
I heard he's going to be there. Khabib Nurmagomedov, I heard he's going to be there, but may not be in the corner itself. So we'll find out.
I read something where he may have been in camp with him.
Right. Was helping him out for at least the final few weeks of camp. Not the entire camp, but helped him out, helped her refine a little bit. And I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it.
Man, dude. And listen, I know Khabib said he's done. He's this, that, and the other. Khabib's good for this sport.
He is. He's amazing, man. And look, he's such a phenomenal mind for the game. And you think about the background. I mean, it's not like, you know, him and Islam worked together for, you know, a couple years or whatever. And they kind of I mean, they've been together since they were kids. You know what I mean? This is special. So I'd love to see it. I hope maybe the surprise delivers and he's there. It would be cool to see. And I know everybody there in Abu Dhabi would be honored by Khabib's presence.
When this fight fell apart and Volkanovski stepped in, I said, listen, it's crazy. It's awesome. I'm not surprised by it. I am, however, surprised at the last-minute replacement for Khamzat Chimaev in the co-main event. That man is former welterweight great, arguably, if not one, then definitely 2 greatest welterweight of all time in Kamaru Usman. Now, what happened when we went off the air last week? I think this happened Thursday or Friday, is Paulo Costa had a surgery he did not tell the UFC about, a bacterial infection, you know, in his elbow that may have got better, may not have got better. The commission just found out about it and they're not clearing him. I don't really know that details. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, as you said, it was a kind of a surgery that he thought was going to go okay, and it didn't go okay, and there was an infection, and he was going to have another procedure, but he's like, no, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be okay. And basically the doctors are like, come on, man, you can't fight with that. So they didn't clear him to compete.
All right, so Kamaru Usman steps in. Last minute, going up in weight, but it's weird because Chimaev is going up in weight also. first fight at aside from a late minute replacement early in his UFC career. It's his first fight at 85 as well. And Khamzat is a massive favorite, minus 295 as well. You shocked by that?
I am. And I think there's some definite public sentiment in that. I mean, Khamzat has become this just absolute monster, right? I mean, it's almost like, the reputation is almost more than even what he's accomplished, even though what he's accomplished has been amazing, right? He's almost become this kind of mythical creature in that he's just an unstoppable wolf that nobody can compete against ever. I think, his future does lie at middleweight. Obviously, you remember last time he had that huge weight miss last time out that really almost jeopardized the card at UFC 279. They had some shakeups. It was one of the craziest weeks we've ever seen in UFC history. So I think his future is at 185. Now, Usman, for his part, has been saying, he's been welcoming this matchup. He's been saying maybe we can do a catch weight, maybe we can do something in between. And the UFC was like, nah, not really interested in catch weight because that doesn't really do anything. Now he steps up on short notice and he's willing to make the trip to Abu Dhabi, move up a weight class. I don't know that this is necessarily where Usman's future lies at middleweight. Again, he's talked about maybe taking some fights here and there. It does allow him to compete on short notice because he has some pretty rough cuts down to 170.
But Dana White said the winner of this fight gets a title shot at 85.
Well, you have to. I mean, this is an opportunity. And well, you feel bad for old Dricus du Plessis sitting there on the sidelines going, what?
Hey, boss.
Remember me? Remember the guy from South Africa? Remember beat Robert Whittaker last time out? That guy? Remember that guy? You got to feel bad for him. But, and listen, right or wrong, I think that's a message from Dana White saying, hey, strike when the iron's hot. Remember when I gave you that opportunity that Sean Strickland ended up taking and capitalized on, and you couldn't take it, Dricus? Now, again, fair or not fair. I mean, I don't think you should be asking guys to fight injured, but that kind of stuff sticks with Dana White and the UFC brass. They're like, hey, man, we had an opportunity. You said you didn't want to compete. Now, there's a difference between you didn't want to and you couldn't, but they're saying you didn't want to compete. Now we got this situation going on. We're going to capitalize on that. So it's a little bit wild. I mean, there's a whole bunch of other things to talk about.
More excited, less excited, equally as excited.
I think more excited, to be honest with you, for this matchup. And I'm going to tell you why. Even though Paulo Costa is dangerous, even though he's the natural middleweight, I just think because of the questions that are around him lately, the performances that he's had the last couple times out, then all the talk about this, and it's not talk, but the learning of this injury that was happening and this surgery was happening, it just feels like a fight that if Khamzat won, there'd still be question marks of like, was this guy really ready? He hasn't even looked good. Is he really Paulo Costa? There's no question marks around Usman. Former champion, one of the greatest welterweights ever. Yes, not necessarily his history doesn't lie at middleweight, but his history of greatness in the UFC is there. This would be a signature win. This would be a no excuses, no question marks. This would be fantastic. So because of that, I'm more excited. It's incredible. I mean, the winner, you're either going to get Usman, Usman's kind of in a weird spot right now, as long as Leon Edwards holds the belt at 170, right? This frees up a whole lot for him. Meanwhile, Chimaev has been this guy, man. He came in and just put this assault on the UFC, but he's had these starts and stops along the way. He wins this. Now he gets to fight for a title. I mean, come on. So I'll be honest with you, and I mean that is no disrespect to Paulo Costa, but I think I'm more excited for this matchup.
I'm equally as excited. And if you listened to last week, you could tell how excited I was. I don't think Paulo Costa was getting the respect he deserved, not to discount or discredit anything that you said. He's just such a physical monster. And I looked at his last fight. Yeah, he just got Mike Perry, just took his teeth out in bare knuckle. I'm spacing his name right.
Luke Rockhold.
Luke Rockhold. Gosh, I'm crazy. I looked at that fight as Luke Rockhold, who packed some serious freaking power, hit him with everything, and he barely even moved Costa back. Like, that's how I look at it. I look at it from the standpoint of Yoel Romero wasn't able to take Paulo Costa down. I add those two together, I see one hell of a fight here when you're fighting Chimaev. So that's why I was very excited about that fight.
I get it, but Yoel Romero was 2019. Luke Rockhold was coming off a situation where we weren't really sure where his motivation was at. Was he really competing? You know what I mean? And then in between those, you had the Marvin Vettori fight where Paulo Costa changed the weight classes. Then you had the Israel Adesanya fight where there were, just a weird performance that he had there, and the wine, and
that's why I'm saying I'm just equally excited. I understand what you're saying, and I agree in a large part. I'm in awe of what Paulo Costa was and what he still can be. I'm in
Right.
awe of that because he is
Oh,
that much of a physical specimen at 85.
he is. He's an absolute physical specimen. So that part of it, you know what I mean? Like just the sheer strength that he would bring in there, the power that we bring in there. I totally get that. I just think that when you're talking about Khamzat, because for me, Khamzat Chimaev has been this, incredible force. He came in, he had this quick turnaround. He's been amazing. I smash everybody, et cetera, et cetera. But there's been these, you're like, yeah, but you don't have this big signature win yet. And I think, unfortunately, with Paulo Costa, because of all the question marks, I think that even if he had an impressive win there, you would kind of look in the rearview mirror and be like, yeah, but look at what we've seen lately. Whereas I think if he beats Usman, you just go,
okay,
man, this is the guy. This is the guy.
So now I want to get to Usman. In this fight, I was surprised. Now, obviously, like, you're on the inside, but you might not know anything like this. But I mean, you were down in Killcliff this past week. You were down at America Top Team. You were down in South Florida. So Usman, Killcliff FC guy. Do you think it seems like Kamaru Usman is taking the bigger risk here, in my opinion, right? And do you think that for him to take that risk, I don't think money necessarily was a factor, even though he's probably getting the bag to take it. But I also look at it from a standpoint of, like, he's a legacy fighter now, right? And he had to have already had a fight in his head, training for that, and was in some sort of camp that just wasn't announced yet. Would I be off in my thinking on that?
No, you're probably right about that. Now, I didn't hear that was the case, but you're right. I don't think he would come off the streets and just say, sign me up for a fight. I haven't been in the gym at all, but give me Khamzat Chimaev on 10 days notice. So,
right. Yeah.
Yeah, I would assume that you're correct in that assumption.
It's just a big risk for him. I mean, we both saw Usman at the Apex Center just a few weeks ago, right? He was cornering his brother. And I remember thinking, I'm like, that dude makes 170 pounds. Good Lord. Right.
Well, now he doesn't have to.
Now he doesn't have to. I'm worried about this fight. I really am, because like I said, I look at it from a legacy standpoint for Kamaru Usman. He gets the head kick knockout versus Leon Edwards. Doesn't look great in the rematch. Right? He has a long history of how badly injured that he has been over the course of his career. His knees are like almost unrepairably bad. And so I'm just worried about this fight, about, how big of a risk it is for him to take this.
I think you're right, and I think you lay out the reasons it is a risk, but I think you got to look at the upside of it too. You know what I mean? I think Usman knows that there's not a whole lot of time left for him to compete because of the knee injuries, because of, an athletic career with his wrestling and all those things. And you're right, he certainly isn't doing this for free. I'm sure he got a nice little paycheck to go along with it, but the upside of it, because you don't really know what's available for him at 170 pounds. Like, what's the matchup you have to see at 170?
Yeah, even if Colby is a champion, do you want to see Colby 3? Do you want to see Usman Leon 4?
Yeah, exactly. So that's where I think he's in. Whereas if he wins this and he knows that Strickland's on the other side of that in a title fight, I mean, like, that's incredible, right? I mean, it just opens up this huge path for him. And as you said, I mean, he is a legacy fighter at this point. And what would that add to his legacy if he's able to add a second title? So I think you're right. I mean, look, there is a potential that if Khamzat is who everybody thinks Khamzat is, he could come out there and absolutely destroy Kamaru Usman. And then we go, whoa, that was terrible. And then the question marks around Usman become even bigger. Now, he would be able to say, guys, relax. I took that on short notice. I moved up a weight class. I wanted to put on a show for you guys. I wanted to save the card. I don't regret doing it, but it made me realize, no, 170 is my true home, and I'm going to come back here and show the world that I'm the best welterweight. So there is kind of a retreating point where you can come back and say, yeah, but I took that risk, but that's not me. So there is some risk, but I just think the upside is massive. I mean,
100%. And I want to refresh our audience's memory here about how hard it is to take down Kamaru Usman. I want everybody in this audience to remember before the Edwards 2. Everybody thinks it was 1, but it was 2 because they fought earlier in their career, very early in their UFC career, where the head kick knockout. That was the first time Kamaru Usman had ever been taken down in an MMA fight. And it was almost like a surprise takedown. Like nobody knew it was really going to happen. And I think Kamaru Usman himself, like wasn't taking it serious. So he's only been taken down one time in an MMA fight. And that one was by surprise. He knows that Chimaev is going to be screaming across this cage, diving for that takedown. And I'll tell you what, if Chimaev takes him down in round one, then we already know he's that guy. But good Lord. Now, Chimaev's got hands too. Usman's got hands. This is shaping up to be one hell of a fight. I think the lines are writing Usman off a little bit, not necessarily fairly, but I think it is the hype train that are perpetrating those lines. But watch out. First minute of round one. Let's see how Chimaev approaches this. Is he going to go out there and try and loosen him up with some strikes, then go for the takedown? Or is he going to do Hazmat and go boom and try and take him down? Because I don't think that's a smart approach to Kamaru Usman.
I don't think that's a smart approach either, but I think it's the approach that he's going to use. Like, that's what people love about him, right? He's just crazy. He's just like, I'm coming at you. You know what I'm going to do. Try to stop me. You know what I mean? There's no game planning. I'm not trying to trick you. I'm not trying to lull you into a sense of one thing and do another. Like, I'm here to impose my will on you and show you that I'm just a better man than you are and that you can't stop me at it. So, I can't wait for it. I honestly can't wait for it. And again, that's why I'm more excited, I think, because you're 100% right. The visual of Paulo Costa is just an absolute juggernaut. But the performances haven't been there lately. Usman, the former champ, this is going to be amazing. So, and again, hey, two guys again that deserve credit for pulling this fight together on short notice. We said it about the main event. Let's say it about the co-main event. Well, the UFC as a whole. Can you imagine? I mean, think about the tension that must have been happening in the UFC offices. Is there a few weeks out from UFC 294? It's a pay-per-view event, but it's a pay-per-view event in Abu Dhabi with your business partners over there who've invested significantly in you over the years, and it's fallen apart, and you're going, what the hell are we going to do? And this is what you come up with. Wow. Yeah,
that's why
bravo.
the UFC is the UFC. For no other reason other than this. They got the stable of guys that are still going to have that drawing power and that are damn crazy enough to do it.
It's crazy, man. They're willing to do it. And obviously, they're doing it for a nice paycheck. There's money that comes along with it, but it still does take, a certain level of character and courage to step into situations like this, because we've outlined it, kind of what the downsides are in both those situations. And these guys are willing to step up and do it, man. Much respect.
Wow. Tune in, early start time Saturday, UFC pay-per-view from Abu Dhabi, 294. I'm here for it. Now, we don't have time to get into it, but USADA is out. New anti-doping or drug testing company is in. There may be some legal battles that are going to happen over the way that this relationship broke up, and what was said by USADA on the way out, essentially that the UFC was wanting to game the system with Conor McGregor, which then Dana White empirically said this guy is out of his mind and he's got sour grapes. And, that the UFC brass detailed it with Nowinski and
Hunter
Campbell. They basically outlined everything in a press conference. And then USADA in USADA fashion says, well, we stick to our statement of yesterday. Kind of weird. I don't know what's going on, but I take the UFC at their word that they were always going to make sure that Conor McGregor had 6 months of clean tests.
Yeah, and it's like you said, we don't have a lot of time to get into it today. It's something we could spend an entire hour talking about, just that. But it is a story that will follow over the next couple months. USADA will stay in place until the end of this year, and that's when this new program that the UFC is constructing and going to run themselves will be in place, to which they've actually promised will be even more strenuous testing, and will actually be testing more frequently and for more substances. So they expect.
And they hired an outside consultant for it, so it's not like them just being like, "Hey, we're going to control everything." No, they have an outside consultant for it.
Right. So, what they said is that, hey, we think we built a great program with USADA and it's the gold standard. Now we're going to make this the platinum standard. We're going to take it up another level. But yeah, the Conor McGregor situation involvement in this is wild. I had been saying all along, because Conor McGregor was saying, hey, man, all I got to do is just jump back in the program, 2 tests, and I'm good to go. And I had been saying all along, I don't believe that's going to happen. I believe that the UFC believes in this enough. They're going to make him do 6 months. I've had conversations off record. I've had conversations on record, behind the scenes, everywhere. And everything I've ever heard is that the UFC fully intended for Conor to do 6 months worth of testing because he stepped out of the program. And when you get back in, that's the rule. You got to do 6 months unless you get a waiver. But that waiver is designed for people that are stepping in on short notice, generally speaking. So I never thought it was going to happen. The UFC has told me it was never going to happen. But, you know, Conor said it in the media, and I think that upset USADA. And they were like, but he's saying that he's going to compete. And behind the scenes, the UFC is saying, it's Conor McGregor. He says stuff. That's what he does. You know what I mean?
His buddy is Dillon Danis.
Yeah, it reminded me back in the day, like when Chael Sonnen was still competing, right? Like Chael would say the craziest stuff. Yeah, and then people would go to press conferences and like ask Dana about what Chael said, and Dana's like, it's Chael. Like, you understand, he just says stuff. There's no facts to it whatsoever, and that's what was here. So it was a little weird, man. I think USADA acted. I'll be honest with you, man. I thought they were a little bit out of line in this situation. You know, I think they kind of overstepped some bounds and they shot themselves in the foot a little bit. So we'll see how it all plays out. I'm actually really interested to see what USADA does for the next 2.5 months, right? Do they test the heck out of Conor McGregor to try to prove a point and catch him? Or do they not test him at all? And then at the end of it, been like, how do you even know if this guy's clean? Like, nobody even tested him, and then kind of try to throw some shade on his character. So I'm just kind of interested to see how this thing plays out over the next couple months. But the new program will be in place January 1.
One more little thing, and this we're gonna have to, and I'm gonna task you with this because I don't have the context you have. But John Jones kind of brought up something a little bit particularly interesting, and about like the decograms that were in there, and all of the decograms or whatever, and all these things, and that it might not even have been a thing.
In terms of whether
like in the test, it was just like in the test, it's not even a thing. It's something that's just reading from. And so he's claiming like, hey, I want those wins back.
Well, he won't get the wins back, unfortunately, but his point is well made, and I understand why he's saying it. And yeah, I mean, I lived through all that, and Jeff Nowitzki, I mean, I've heard it a bunch of times, but he talks about the how big, how minute the testing is because it's so accurate, and he always has this example, but it's worth repeating for people that haven't heard it before. The level of testing, the accuracy of testing they have is like taking 1 grain of salt and throwing it into an Olympic-sized swimming pool, and you can test that. You can test that one little tiny grain where it's like, are you really getting any benefit from this whatsoever? There's these these products that stay in your system for years. There's this phenomenon they've called that they've named pulsing, where it's like it looks like it's left your system, but a little bit was in there. And then when you start to cut weight, or when your body chemistry changes a little bit, it pops back up despite no readministration. So there's a whole lot of science behind it that you can really, depending on how far you want to go down that rabbit hole, man, you can really dig into it. So,
but I read something where he was claiming like it almost was reading on a test, even though it wasn't there. And that there wasn't a trace, but it was just reading because it'll naturally always read a decagram or something like that.
There's again, so that's the thing that the Jeff Nowitzki and the UFC have been pushing. They've been working with USADA, and USADA has actually made adjustments, and it is becoming more of the norm across all of sport is to raise the testing threshold a little bit because it's so minute, the levels, that it's like the guy's not even trying to cheat. There's no benefit being given from here, but it was like in some food, or it was in like a contaminant of, something that he was taking and whatever. And it's kind of unfair to punish him just because of the level of accuracy is so high. So it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out for sure going forward. Like I said, USADA will still be around until the end of the year. So we'll see what they do in this time. And then the new program should be in place for next year.
All right. Awesome. Before we jam out of here, CFFC 126 was from the Tampa Fairgrounds, the Florida Fairgrounds in Tampa Bay, Florida. It was hot, it was muggy, but it delivered in the cage.
A lot of fun. If you didn't get a chance to check it, the replay's on UFC Fight Pass, but we had a lot of highlights. We didn't get the main event we were expecting. The former champ missed weight by 9 pounds, which was crazy, which forced a shuffle in the lineup. But everybody stepped up, and so you had guys that were supposed to be in the co-main event that got the headlining slot. You got guys that were supposed to be on the prelims, and instead they got bumped up to the main card and featured
vicious heavyweight knockout. Go watch it.
Yeah, it's on UFC Fight Pass. So see CFFC 126. You can hear me and CM Punk on the mic. You can see Eric in the cage doing his thing out there, officiating for us. So it was a family affair out there in Florida, but it was a fun night. Tampa State Fairgrounds. The crowd showed up as always. It was a bigger venue than what we had been using down there in Florida. It was a Friday night where we used to go on Thursday, so I felt like there was a little bit different energy in the crowd because people knew they were hanging out. It was the weekend; they didn't have to go to work the next day. it was a lot of fun, man. It was a good night. So yeah, if you missed it live, go catch the replay on Fight Pass. We had some great fights.
Yep, it was fun. I already checked out the replay on Fight Pass because I want to see how much crap you talk about me while I'm in that cage. Oh, he missed it, but no, you were somewhat complimentary.
It's somewhat, you know what I mean. We give credit where credit is due.
At least this card, CM Punk wasn't yelling for me to take a point when there was no justification for taking a point. Anyhow, man, I love CM Punk, dude. He's a fun guy to have around. So be tuned. There may be news there. I don't know. I tried to get an inside from you and you wouldn't tell me.
We just, Dave, he'll make the decision. He'll make the announcement when he's ready.
All righty. Well, fun episode. Remember, early start time, 2 p.m. Eastern time, UFC 294 Abu Dhabi, headlined by not former champion Charles Oliveira and Islam Makhachev. It is now champion versus champion Makhachev-Volkanovski, not to be outdone. Former champion Kamaru Usman up in weight, 85, taking on the maniac. He is him, guy. Khamzat Chimaev, 185, Abu Dhabi, UFC 294. I cannot wait. With that being said, for John Morgan, I'm Eric McMahon. Enjoy the fights.